Hey there. Let's start our discussion about layouts by focusing on grids. When you design a mockup, the correct placement of elements on your page can improve user flow and make it easier to navigate. But it can be tricky to guess where to place elements within your mockup, especially as a new designer. Luckily, we have tools to make correct placement or layout easier. First, there are basic grids. These intersecting lines divide pages into small squares that allow you to easily lay out elements in a design. The lines on the grid are evenly spaced to help you design consistently and manage spacing of elements. Here's what a basic grid is like in Figma. If you drew wireframes on grid paper in an earlier course, these grids might look familiar. While basic grids are useful to help you design consistently, it's more common for UX designers to use a layout grid. A layout grid is a series of columns and alleys that allow you to organize elements in a design. Columns are the colored blocks, and alleys are the spaces between the columns. Here's what a layout grid is like in Figma. Notice that columns are a light red and are all the same width. The alleys are white and are also all the same width. The number of columns in a layout grid depends on the type of device you're designing for. If you design for a larger screen, like a website on a laptop or desktop computer, the layout grid might have 12 columns. As you design for smaller screens, your layout grid will have fewer columns. For example, the layout grid for a tablet or app includes 4 to 8 columns, and the layout grid for a smartwatch has only 1 column. But keep in mind, no matter what device you're designing for, the number of columns in your layout grid depends on how you want to organize and split up your content. You might be wondering, should I use a basic grid or a layout grid when I design? This varies for each designer, so the choice is yours. Some designers use both basic and layout grids, while others use only one. Some designers don't even use grids at all. When you're just getting started as a UX designer, you might want to use a grid for a few reasons. First, grids create clarity and consistency. An effective grid guides the eye, making it easier and more pleasant to scan elements on the screen. Second, grids quicken the design process, making it faster to place elements on the screen. And third, grids make it easier to collaborate on designs. With a grid, designers will generally know where to place things. Let's check out a mockup from an entry-level designer who now works at Google. Here, Dane created an app called Peacock. On this page, users are prompted to search for friends or locations near them. The page features a search bar above images of cities like New York, San Francisco, and Chicago. Take note of how the squares for each image are exactly the same size, and how the search bar is centered directly in the middle of the screen above the images. You can tell that Dane used a grid to plan his design, which made it easy to place elements. Thanks to the use of a grid, Dane's completed mockup has a visually appealing layout. You could even reuse this layout for another purpose. For example, I could see the same layout being used by a food ordering app, where each image box is a different restaurant. You're starting to get the hang of how to lay out a page. Coming up, we'll discuss another thing to keep in mind when laying out a page: containment.